A giant oil tanker, 460 feet of steel, is charging straight toward the blockade line at 17 knots. No answer on channel 18. No slowdown, no turn. Above it, the pilot knows time is almost gone. He has 4 options, and 2 are already off the table. What happens in the next 6 minutes will be nerve-shredding because this is no longer about who has bigger firepower. It is about who makes the hard call before disaster breaks loose. This is no longer just about firepower. This is about physics, timing, and the brutal rules of combat in one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth. And the whole answer comes down to one thing: which aircraft America sent to hold that line. Out of everything in the arsenal, only one aircraft could do this job the way it had to be done. To understand what that pilot does next, you first have to understand what the Strait of Hormuz is demanding from that aircraft in the first place. But here is what made the whole world stop and stare. This was no longer a warning. This was a real blockade. The United States Navy had moved to squeeze every Iranian port on the Arabian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Oil markets shook. Tehran got the message fast. Overhead, FA-18s were already circling on combat patrol. Higher still, P-8 Poseidons watched every move in silence. But the final authority, the power to stop, challenge, or escalate, still rested with the warships on the water. This was a joint operation from the very beginning, but inside that huge war machine, one mission stood apart. It needed an aircraft that could get low enough to spot a small boat in rough sea clutter, stay on station long enough to make its presence mean something, and most important of all, stop a defiant vessel without turning it into scrap metal in seconds. In other words, this mission did not need the fastest jet or the flashiest one. It needed the one aircraft built for a tense, dangerous showdown exactly like this. That critical mission went to one aircraft, and the choice was almost shocking. A 30,000-pound warplane armed with a fearsome 30mm rotary cannon built back in 1972 to destroy Soviet tanks on the plains of Germany. It was the very aircraft the Air Force had spent years trying to retire. And yet, at Hormuz, that old beast suddenly became the one machine America could not do without. To understand why, you first have to understand the brutal problem the Strait of Hormuz actually creates. This was not a mission of hunting. It was not just a mission of identification. This was enforcement, and that is a completely different kind of fight. In Hormuz, that difference means everything. Out there, the real battle is shaped by cold math, hard rules, and 21 nautical miles of open water, where one wrong move can ignite a much bigger crisis. But now the biggest question comes into focus. What does a blockade really mean? Because this is not the kind of mission the A-10 was built to do before. Until this point, American air power had mostly been doing one thing: hunting. A threat races toward the formation, or hides among civilian boats, and the job is to find it and strike it. But a blockade is different. It is not just about seeing the target. It is about forcing it to stop, at the right moment, under the rules, without turning the whole region into a larger crisis. In earlier fights, the target either came into the kill zone on its own, or the aircraft had to go out and hunt it down. The ending was usually simple and clear. The target was neutralized. But blockade duty is completely different. Here, success does not mean setting a ship on fire. Success means stopping it before it crosses the forbidden line. If the vessel stops at a distance, that is success. If it turns around the moment it sees the aircraft, that is also a victory. Put simply, this mission is not about destruction. It is about stopping a crisis before it explodes. In a blockade mission, the best outcome is when nothing happens at all. No shots fired, no ship burning, no sudden escalation. And that changes everything about the aircraft overhead. A hunter only needs to find the target and take it out. But an enforcement aircraft has a very different job. It must be seen clearly, feared immediately, and remain overhead long enough to make that warning feel real. In this kind of standoff, presence is the real weapon. But that presence means nothing unless the aircraft can reach the scene, hold its position, and stay there long enough to turn a warning into real pressure. And this is where Hormuz becomes far more dangerous than it looks on a map. At its narrowest point, the strait is only 21 nautical miles wide. That may sound manageable, but the world's commercial shipping is squeezed into a very tight corridor. 2 traffic lanes run in opposite directions, each about 2 nautical miles wide, with a safety buffer between them. In plain terms, this is not open ocean where ships can maneuver freely. It is a giant bottleneck, and one vessel moving the wrong way can turn the whole area into a crisis in minutes. Every day, nearly 20% of the world's oil moves through that narrow strait. To shut it down, an aircraft cannot just dash across and disappear. It has to stay there, be seen, and make the threat feel real. An A-10C flying at 300 knots can cross the strait in just 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That sounds fast. But in real combat, one quick pass is never enough. A real patrol means staying over the area long enough to spot what is moving, where it is headed, and whether it belongs there at all. That takes more than speed. It takes staying power. And that is where the A-10C becomes dangerous. With external fuel tanks, it can hold the same patch of water for about 2.5 hours, armed, visible, and impossible to ignore. Here, the real advantage is not speed, altitude, or fancy sensors. It is time. That is the number that matters. Now run the same test on the A-10 Super Hornet, strong aircraft, battle-proven, built for carrier war. But over the strait, it gives you only about 1.3 hours of useful loiter, while burning more than $25,000 every flight hour. That is where the numbers start to hurt. The Super Hornet was built to hit high-value targets with precision, not to circle a shipping lane for 90 minutes. Issue repeated warning steps to a ship that refuses to stop, and do it cheaply enough to keep the mission running day and night. Wide area watch belongs to the P-8 Poseidon, while the real legal power to stop and board vessels stays with the warships on the water. The A-10 is not the whole war. It is one piece of a much bigger machine. But when you need an aircraft that can fly low, stay long, carry weapons, and raise pressure step by step right over the target area, the A-10 still holds a place almost nothing else can replace. Think of it simply. A highway patrol officer does not have to chase every car, he just has to be seen. Its presence alone starts changing behavior on the water below. And that is exactly what an A-10C orbiting the approaches to Hormuz at 300 knots brings to the fight. Visible, armed, and stubbornly patient. The last question is whether it can truly see enough. With 2.5 hours on station, a 300-knot orbit, and a strait just 21 nautical miles wide, the A-10C can handle that geometry. And in the Persian Gulf, that is where the real trap begins. The biggest obstacle is not the enemy, it is the water. When the wind rises and the waves start breaking, the sea throws radar signals everywhere and creates a thick screen of clutter. And inside that clutter, the most dangerous small boats can slip in and hide.